Good morning, and thank you for making ekaboom TV part of your morning routine.
We're Ruben and Joan Romero, and today we're going to talk about hiring people.
All right, so let's get down to business. So, Ruben, tell me about hiring people.
Well, hiring people is kind of a difficult subject when you're a business owner. You have to know when you're going to hire someone. You have to know who to hire. You have to know how you're going to hire them. It can actually get kind of complicated.
Yeah.
But in talking about this segment, I looked up some interesting facts about hiring people, and so here's some of those facts. Did you know that 40% of resumes contain material lies or omissions about past jobs, education, and qualifications? 40%.
40%.
40%. Wow. Evidence, scientific evidence shows that if people are dishonest in getting the job, they're also more likely to be dishonest on the job.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And that's not surprising. But here's an interesting one. The turnover cost for one bad employee can be as much as 2 to 3 times their salary. So that's what makes hiring someone so difficult, because it's actually super expensive to hire the wrong person. Using social media to screen your applicants may be tempting, but it could potentially lead to discrimination allegations.
Oh.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Sense.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, there's some other facts about that. But let's talk about hiring people, because hiring people can be, it's a blessing and a curse. When you find the right people, it is awesome. Finding the right people is not always as easy as you'd think it would be, or you'd hope it would be. It's not just like, hey, I need to hire someone, put out a job posting, and everyone comes, and you end up finding the most qualified person, and then that's it. I was reading another statistic this was about 2012, but there were tens of thousands of jobs that never even got posted. So,
it's like who you know.
Yeah.
Never got to the posting point.
Really, a lot of jobs happen through referrals.
And that makes sense if you know that 40% of people are lying. But if you know, he's a friend of a friend, and so there's some background checking going on, I guess you could say. Right. That you feel like you can trust.
But I think as a business owner, though, you have to just think carefully of when you're going to hire someone. One of the difficult transitions for the business owner is you need to get to the point where you can afford to hire someone, but that transitional point is very difficult, because at that point you're overburdening yourself or your other employees, your other staff, trying to make up for the fact that you don't have another person. And then you have to get to that point, and that's a hard point to get to. It's like, okay, so I need more work, even though to justify hiring this person, but I can't take on too much more work because we can't handle that.
So it's the feast or famine thing. It's like, okay, we're all stressed out, so we have to hire someone. But even then, there's still work, because now you're training while you're still doing it.
That's why
it's always a lot of work.
That's why the costs are so expensive, the 2 to 3%. So what do you do?
Well,
okay, no,
I'm thinking, let's rewind a little bit. So you start your own business. See, I assume everyone starts from ground zero, just because that's where we started.
It's not always the case, but
no,
yeah.
Some people start with a team,
but probably
and
people
financing.
Watching this are probably somewhere in between that.
Okay. So, for example, our story is you were just one person starting the business. When did you say, okay, I need to bring on another person and I can afford to hire that person?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've really felt like I needed that other person when I brought on the other person. Our first hire was actually there were times at the beginning where I was like, I don't know what to give this person. But I think it was an important move to be able to say, hey, I'm going to give something to someone. And at the beginning, it was a little crazy because it was just like, okay, here, go and do this. And if you don't know how to do it, go learn how to do it. You know, so that was, you know, that was a challenge because I didn't have any training to give them. I didn't have anything to say, okay, here's your role, and here, you know, we were too small to say some of those things. I think now, I think I've become more educated, and I understand that you should actually have roles, you should actually have jobs. At that point, you know, I didn't know, I didn't understand those kinds of things. I didn't know, even if I was giving them a role and saying, here's your 6 roles that you have to do, you know, go and do those, and here's how you do them. That wasn't on my radar at the time.
Right, because it takes a whole other skill set to not just run your own business and have your own business, but it takes a whole other skill set then to have someone else to work with, and how do you work together, and how do you give them stuff. It's like a whole different job. You entered into a whole new phase where you had to be a different person in your business than you were before.
Absolutely. You do need to every part of growing a business, every step of growing a business, you are learning a different skill set. When you're hiring someone, when you're training people, that's a whole new process. And you actually may be really good at what you do, and you may be amazing. You may be the best there is. But if you can't adapt and get those skill sets to be able to say, okay, now I got to learn how to hire people. Now I got to learn how to fire people. Now I got to learn how to train people. Now I got to learn how to, you know, set up a business structure and positions and all those kinds of things. It takes a lot of adaptation. It takes a lot of flexibility, and you have to be kind of versatile. I mean, you can't just be the best at what you do when you're running a business. You have to be really good at doing all these other things, or at least being able to kind of do them to some degree as you grow. And nobody's perfect. Go ahead.
And today's show's about hiring people. So someone out there is saying, okay, I need to hire someone. I already know that. What do I do?
What do you do? You know what? My best advice I can give you is, you know, look at all your options. You don't always have to hire someone part-time or full-time, all out as an employee. There are other options. Sometimes outsourcing is one of those options. You know, you can outsource things until you can grow big enough that you can take some of that outsourcing work in-house. That takes a lot of the burden off of you of training people how to do, you know, to provide the service that you do. It takes a lot of the burden of like hiring people and firing people and, you know, dealing with the day-to-day kind of stuff. If you can outsource those kinds of things, it can be super helpful, especially at the beginning, until you can develop some of those trainings and skills of hiring and firing.
So are you talking about hiring other companies to do portions of your work, or are you talking about contracted?
Yeah, I think both. I mean, I would definitely look at
like a 1099.
if there are options to hire an actual company and the numbers work for you to be able to do that. You know, then I would definitely recommend. Sometimes it means you have to raise your prices because sometimes you're doing things that you can afford to do on your own, but you can't necessarily afford to pay someone else to do. And you know, that's part of business too, where you have to realize, okay, this is much bigger now that I have to hire someone. And you know, it's actually a really good skill to think of before you hire someone, is to price your services or what you do with the thought that you are going to have to eventually pay other people to do part of this as you grow.
Yeah, because people don't like it when you change prices.
People don't like it. Your clients don't like it. Believe it or not, your clients will not like it when you tell them that your prices are going up.
Because people like consistency. They like knowing what to expect. And
yeah,
when things suddenly change, they're like, wait a minute.
They don't like paying more too. Sometimes, you know, they like paying less. So yeah, and when you do it at first, you can do things, you know, pretty cheaply because, you know, you don't have to pay someone else. You can, you know, if you've got to stay up all night doing something, you can kind of do that on your own. If you've got to go over budget and not pay yourself, you can kind of do that. But when you have other people that you've got to pay, you can't
Can't just say,
you can't.
Hey, can you pull an all-nighter?
Yeah, you can't go over budget then. You can't be in business losing money. That just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. All right. So in summary.
Yeah. So I would just say that if you're looking to hire someone, the first thing you need to consider is are you charging enough that you can hire someone. So that may mean you need to raise your prices now before you even hire someone. Seriously consider
and one way to do that might be revamping it or renaming it or packaging it slightly differently, so people are like, oh, well, this is different
than what it was before, right?
That's one way to change prices.
It is. The second thing is look for an outsourcing company. If you can find an outsourcing company to help you get through those kinds of transitions, that's really helpful. You don't have to, use the outsourcing company forever, and you may not make as much money using an outsourcing company than if you can hire, if you're growing at that rate. But that hiring and firing and whatever, that's a big deal. And even if you've done it before, it's still a big deal. So, if there's alternatives like that, try to find those. The next thing would be independent contractors, people who do it, but they do it on, just sort of as a freelancer, finding those kinds of people, and then start looking at people who are, as you go through those, weed through some of those people. In some ways, often that can be a transition into hiring someone kind of full-time or part-time, is finding the independent contractors. It's much easier to get rid of an independent contractor and say, hey, look, this isn't working out. But it's much harder once they become, sort of irregular. But we found actually people through independent contractors, and now that are our regular staff. So it's definitely a great option to go through that, and it's sometimes easier to go through that process than if you were just going to go through interviews, job postings. Now, if you are going to go that route, you have enough business, you really want to put a job posting out there, find the exact right person. One of the tricks that you want to do is make it as hard as possible for them to apply for the job. And that may sound counterintuitive, but you want to make sure that they jump through as many hoops as possible. If maybe you put up a recording and say, hey, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this job, and at the end of it I'm going to tell you how to apply. And they can't fast forward. You put up a button that they have to listen to the whole thing, and they go through it at the end of that recording. Then you say, okay, now if you'd like to apply, go and do this, and you make them go and do that. And then once they do that, you have them do something else. So you want them to jump through those loops, because you end up weeding out the people who are going to waste a lot of your time.
And that goes right along with the fact that you started with, where 40% of the people who lie in their applications are going to lie about the work they do or whatever. People who will jump through hoops and do exactly what you ask them to do are going to jump through hoops for you and do exactly what you ask them to do, which is what you need in a hire. When you need something done, you need them to do it. And if they do that in the application process, then they'll do it in the job process.
I don't even like resumes. I don't like looking at them. I don't much. Yeah, I don't want you to hand me your resume. Like, don't hand me anything. I want to talk to someone. I want them to tell me about their experience or whatever. I don't care what education they have. If they do have experience, that definitely is a plus, and what kind of experience they have. But I want to talk to them and find that out.
And you want to see what they can do.
Yeah.
I need this. Can you do it? And one of our first hires, she, like you said, she will figure it out. We're like, okay, we need this. And she'll say, well, let me learn it. She'll take a day. She'll Google it. That's one of the most important things.
We had to train her, though, to do that. We had to train her. She didn't do that naturally. We had to tell her, go and learn and figure this out.
Watch a bunch of YouTube videos.
And we still have to train our people sometimes those kinds of things. It's like, hey, if you don't know how to do something, instead of coming to me right away, go to YouTube and find out if there's a way that you can figure out how to do it.
Don't ask me any question you can Google faster.
Right.
Than asking me to answer.
Because sometimes they're going to come and ask me, and that's what I'm going to do. is I'm going to say, oh, I don't know about that, and I'm going to go Google it. So you can cut out the middleman. Now that's a whole nother topic of training staff. Now the one last thing I would add is try to avoid hiring someone just like yourself. Because
you don't need two of you.
You don't need two of you. I mean, I heard one person say when you work for yourself, often you end up with a job, but your boss is crazy. The last thing you need is two of you. You want to find someone that can balance you, that can fill in for the things that you struggle with, the things that you have a harder time doing. Those are the kind of people that you want to hire. And I don't want to get into it too much, but one of the things we use is the Colby test, which will test people's action tendencies, which we really love it.
Right. So that's a topic for another day.
That's a whole other topic. But yeah, I mean, you want to find someone that balances you, that makes up for your lacking and your shortfalls. You want to find that person that has those skills that you lack.
Yep. So thanks for subscribing, liking, and telling us what you think in the comments below. Have a great day.
Bye.